Your audio is off, Brett.
Yeah, Brett, start again.
Been not unmute. There we go. Take two. As I was saying before I was so not rudely interrupted, welcome to Full Course Yellow. This is a get together Tuesday, Thursday night. I don't know what day it is at the moment. I certainly don't know what year it is. It's a Thursday night get together where we just sort of chat about the world of local motorsport and international motorsport and basically anything that comes into our mind, really. So while we're not doing the show, however, when I say we're not doing the show, I can let you know that I'm not sure this might be our last episode, at least of this for the moment, because still waiting for confirmation, but coming up within the next week or so, either next Thursday night, if not then the following Thursday night, In Pit Lane, the show will be back on Channel 31 and, of course, on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. And we've got all sorts of plans. A lot has happened yesterday. That's why I'm absolutely beside myself at the moment. It's been a really, really hectic couple of days, and I'm absolutely exhausted. But we've got some really exciting news coming up, and we just got to pull all that together at the moment, and we're working a lot of things. But when it comes together, it's going to be fantastic. So just stay tuned, and we'll try and give you some information on that, because we've got so much happening. This Saturday, for instance, we're going to be up at Kilsyth for the Retro Rally festival that's up there. There's about 50 cars, and I'm not sure what the limit on spectators. There will certainly be a limit, but go to their Facebook page, search for Retro Rally and Kilsyth, and that'll find their page. And you can head along there, because it's going to be fantastic. But that's going to be the focus of our first episode of In Pit Lane. And then, of course, we've got Phillip Island Historics coming up. We've got all sorts of things that are coming around the corner. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for that on In Pit Lane when it returns for its 25th year on Channel 31 Melbourne, and wherever you normally consume these things. Now joining us once again, the crew are here. At least most of the crew are here. Peter's here. We've got Doc. We've also got Chris alongside us as well. So so let's talk about this week. It's the restart of the supercar season, and we're starting off not on the streets of Adelaide, but we're starting off on the beautiful tourist road of Mount Panorama in Bathurst for the inaugural Bathurst 500 sprint race. A couple of short distance races over the course of the weekend, and so we thought we'd have a bit of a chat about what's going to be happening there for not just this race, but also this season. But before we sort of get down and break it down by teams and drivers, let's talk about guys. Are you looking forward? I mean, are you beside yourself? Are you crossing off the days and making a list and checking it twice for the return of supercars?
I'm excited about coming back. First of all, I think you just announced it a minute ago, and it's we're getting asked lots of questions and emails and text and etc. It's exciting that we're back first, and we can bring all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes at Supercars.
Hello, Russell.
Go Russell. Yeah, good to see you again, Russell. Our loyal viewer there. Well, we got a few loyal, but Russell is one of our very loyal viewers. Look. When you say about supercars and keeping people up to date, we try and keep people up to date with supercars. It's not the easiest thing in the world. Supercars has become less and less a part of the Australian motor racing scene, and more an entertainment property of News Corporation and Foxtel. So it's very hard to get information. It's very hard to get access to the drivers and to the teams. We certainly can't go out and film anything. We've got Sandown coming up in a couple of weeks' time. That's after Phillip Island, and Sandown's just across the road from me basically, and I can open the front door. I can hear the cars running around, but we certainly can't go over and film there. Not even sure we can go over on any of the days beforehand. They used to have a media day. Don't think they have that anymore for the non-rights holders. They used to let us film there it was basically, look, as long as you don't film the race, but if you want to film interviews, if you want to film the press conferences, if you want to get, like general atmosphere stuff or do stuff with the support categories, not a problem. That all ended a few years ago when Foxtel became involved as well. So
we certainly get some good snippets of gossip and information, but a lot of it we can't tell about that either because then we're going to get sued for defamation. So that's
well, there's
shame.
a lot of that going around. See, these are some of the things I'd like to find out. And I mean, a lot of them revolve around around the team that's just across the road from me at Erebus.
Yeah,
They've lost so many people. I mean, the obvious person they've lost is Dave Reynolds. They also lost Anton De Pasquale, but Anton was moving on because he basically got an offer you can't resist, the offer you can't refuse. But for Dave, he was very keen to be out of the place, and he took a lot of some of the senior engineers and a lot of senior staff sort of went with him, and also the the sponsor Fenright moved with him as well.
Positive side of it, Brett, and for all the fans out there, the payroll is probably a little bit less from week to week at the moment as well, though. Too some of the checks that would have been handed out, or the pay slips, back in the old day, would have been quite large. But having two young guns like Brown and Kostecki in there, it certainly frees up, as you said, a lot of experienced engineers, and they can run it on a budget, which they don't have some of the backing some of the bigger teams have. So, they were always, the underdog back in the day a few years ago when they were running Mercs or they were just entering in the business. So, but they've always been able to punch above their weight. They've always been able to pull a hat out of a hat, so to speak. And also, I did take note of some of the results last weekend up at Winton where they had a bit of a thrash out of Power Whale. Will Brown was quickest up there. I'm not saying everyone was throwing their marbles down the track the fastest from any team, but Will was quickest. Will Brown.
Yeah, I think the thing with the test, I mean, pre-season testing, whether it's supercars or Formula One, pre-season testing doesn't really mean anything at all. So, the young guys will be out there, putting on the brave face and putting best feet forward. Whereas the more experienced will just be basically settling into the cars, bedding in brakes, bedding in tyres, just giving the car a bit of a run to see if anything, make sure nothing breaks, and if once they're happy that that everything's going fairly smoothly and it's set up close to the way they want it, they put it back in the transporter and bring it on home and get ready for the first.
I beg to differ on that one, Brett. JW would be settling out of the car, wouldn't
he? Well, not until the end of the year. So
yeah, no, he isn't. But he's pretty keen on He's trying to. Oh, I've got to keep everything low key. I'm not doing the Craig Lowndes funeral tour last year. But
he's never been like that anyway. He's never been.
Correct. That's why he wants to keep it that way. But I noticed in all the selective media outlets he has spoken to, and he has been stipulating who he doesn't want to talk to. He's more not saying it's my farewell swan song. At the end of the year, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this. He's more focused on his future career and where he's going to be, part owner or chief CEO and all that sort of stuff. So. I mean, yeah, he's got that drive for it, but he's certainly pumping up his own tyres, what he's doing afterwards.
And I think pre-season testing means a bit less this year than it does normally in other years because of the fact that the Queensland teams tested in Queensland and the Victorian teams tested down here, whereas normally they would test all together. So I think it means a bit less this year than it wouldn't normally.
Yeah, we're not sort of comparing like with like at the moment. I mean, as you say, Queensland teams were up at Queensland Raceway, and the local teams, the Victorian teams, and Team Sydney and Brad Jones were running around at Winton. So, I think that's
news on Queensland as well too. It's the Boost Gold Coast 500 now. This afternoon, it's been renamed.
Okay, this is the Gold Coast race, is it?
The Gold Coast 500 has now been fully sponsored by Boost. Obviously, they've got a finger in each other's camp. The Ford Holden, their they're just they're now also I think it was in the last week or the last few days they're now official telecommunications partnership sponsor as well though too. So a few deals have been struck with Boost, and as we know, our friend Mr. Seton. Yeah, he's certainly enjoying his time at Supercars again to the full extent.
I mean, he's a master of self promotion, and he's a very smart operator in the fact that he's seen some. He's seen some back doors to get in and get some, I think, what would be budget bargain basement prices for these sponsorships, and he's been very smart in that he's spread it across a couple of teams. I mean, people will look at that as being one team. I mean, even though they're two separate cars, two separate makes of cars in two separate teams, people are still going to see the look on the television. They're going to see that and go, "Oh yeah, that's the Boost team."
Controlled by
And,
association.
Yeah, it'll be sort of that. It'll be their yeah, they'll be just assuming that is one team where it isn't. So he gets lots of good exposure. He stirs up plenty of controversy. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's been all over the place. I mean, it only seems like a few weeks ago that he was sort of threatening to pull out of supercars altogether and taking his money over to TCR and the ARG, and this was, he was furious about, all sorts of things. And
he was fighting with Sean Seamer, and they said they weren't taking each other's phone calls. They were screening it, and they wouldn't answer, and they wouldn't negotiate, and no one would come to the table, and no one would talk, and it's not fair. I don't want to go to school with him anymore. No, slightly on the same subject, but off some of the support categories up there, the Toyota 86s. You've got some news about a young gun up there that's coming up through the ranks with great heritage. But I also saw Erebus announce this, I think, in the last 24 hours to a young girl by the name of Holly Eastbray. She's going to be racing at an 86, and she's just now been thrown into obviously accepted into the Erebus Academy for the 86 series. So congratulations to her with the three other young fellas that she's on with. And Paul Morris is a great mentor of her, and has been bringing her up through the ranks and supporting her. So good luck to the girl in the 86 up there at Panorama this weekend.
Yeah, it looks like the Toyota 86 has really taken off, and as the sort of the replacement for Formula Ford in a way. It's the entry level, and the name you mentioned, racing this weekend, a famous name returning to Mount Panorama, is of course the Richard name. Clay Richards will be running in a Shannon sponsored car, so follows on from that long tradition of the third generation of Richards up there. Of course, Jim won the race a number of times. Stephen has won the race a couple of times, and now in terms of the future for Clay, he's looking to set up his future and to have his first start on the mountain. So hoping to catch up with him at some stage in the next week or so to sort of get a bit of feedback from him as to how it all went and his impressions of the place. Also in Super Touring, we've got Super 2. We've got Aaron Seton is running, and we spoke with Aaron on our last series of In Pit Lane on Channel 31. We spoke to him via Zoom, and lovely young kid. You sort of expect that, I suppose, with because Glenn's a really good bloke, and he certainly has raised a good kid there. And what I really liked in talking to Aaron, he's really got he's really sort of switched on. He's a bit like sort of Clay and a bit like Tom Randall and those sorts of guys when they're not. It hasn't all been, even though they've had some some advantages here and there in terms of the family history. It hasn't all been handed to them on a plate. And Aaron was he was very hands on. He was working at Dick Johnson Racing. He liked to get his hands dirty. He liked to get in and around and under the car and make sure that he knew how it worked and could do things on it. So
Clay was on the tools there at Doncaster too, on memory. I think he told us as well too when he came in the studio a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so that's good. That's good to see, because there's so many of these sort of sons of rich fathers who get into the sport now. And Dad, what sort of car do I drive? So.
Obviously, knowing Stephen the way we do now too, Stephen's very humbled and very down to earth and appreciative of life as well too. So I know what Steve would say to Clay if he said Clay said that to him. He'd probably get a clip under the ears metaphorically with a few words. But
I don't think coming from that sort of that stock with both Jim and Steve. I mean, they're all good. They're all good people, and we wish them well on the weekend. And of course, what do you think, Pete? What do you think of you'll be watching on the weekend? What do you think of starting at Bathurst and having this sort of sprint race? I mean, would you prefer it? They were back in Adelaide or somewhere else, or do you think this is a good replacement?
I think it's a good replacement, but I would prefer that they were back in Adelaide. I think they need a blue ribbon event to start the season. But I would prefer that they were back in Adelaide, and hopefully in a couple of years' time that'll happen.
I suppose it really does depend at the moment. It really does seem to depend on the... Go, Mark, how are you? He's joining us. It obviously depends on politics as much as anything. The Labor have already committed that if they're elected to the Parliament next time around, they will revive the Adelaide Street race. Not sure how popular it actually is. I mean, because they had the protest thing where they had, and I know Nick Percat and a couple of others were actually there, and it's like, come along and show your anger, and they had about 150 people turned up. It wasn't like a huge. It will I've been to bigger parties than that. It's I really do think that there'd be a lot of people. This was one of the problems when they lost the Grand Prix. They got really upset about it, but it was like the numbers were going down and down and down, and it was only after they lost the Grand Prix that they went, oh, hang on, that was really good, the Grand Prix. Wish we had it back. So I'm hoping that they'll think that about the supercars, because Adelaide does a great job. I haven't been to the supercars in Adelaide for at least 10 years now, probably even longer. This is how long ago it was. I actually had media accreditation there, so that's how long ago it was. But they do a fantastic job. The whole city, the same with the Grand Prix. The whole city embraces it. It's not just like that's that thing down the road. It's like everybody you go into any shop and we go, oh, you're here for the race, and isn't it fantastic? And who do you think will win? And it's just they take over. It's a really sort of really good environment there.
Just three more things before we run the steamroller.
Hang on a second, Pete.
In '88, when I went there for the Grand Prix, they told me I could take it back with me.
Well, and you did, and we thank you, Pete. See, they've been Jeff Kenner's been bigging himself up for all these years about getting the Grand Prix from Adelaide, and it was actually Pete who brought. They said, you can take it back with you, and Pete said, all right, I will.
Three last bits of information before the steamroller goes completely over the supercars. Hopefully, good luck to the Falcon. There's a Falcon racing in supercars this weekend, so best of luck for that. Boom, boom. It's only on the car, but anyway.
See, this is what I was going to run it. I didn't have time to run it, but when they had the launch yesterday, Neil Crompton actually did use the line that supercars are the epitome of technological advancement in motors. And I thought, what's the test there? Oh, there's a different livery on the Erebus cars this weekend, and there's more blue in the...
He gets bonuses for those comments.
Yeah, well, he'd have to. He'd have to get something for them because, when he said that, I nearly choked him with champagne. It was like, oh, you're kidding.
He was celebrating the supercars launch, of course, with a champers, a nose tickler, of course. Another one. Good luck to SVG, who's doing his first Bathurst 6 hour coming up later this year. And last but not the very least, something for you, Brett. You've probably read a few of these over the years because you've been involved a lot more closely than the rest of us have at times. The season guide is available to the public for the first time this year, over 100 pages. You can look at pretty pictures and illustrations and writing and technical information you already know like the back of your hand. Instead of actually just being available to media, the public can get it on sale this year, which may be a catalyst for future years.
Well, the thing is the series guide, the the media guide. They used to have a media guide, and I've got there. If I could race out now and grab one. They used to. This was one of the good things. They used to have a proper media guide, and this is one of the things that really annoys me. They used to have a proper media guide. At the start of the year, they would send you like the book, and the book would have all the technical information. It would have all the contact numbers. It would have all the resources that you need to do your job as a journalist to report on the supercars. They don't do that anymore. Now, I'm sure this guide that they're putting out there will not be that. It won't be the media guide because, let's face it, they are not going to put the personal numbers of, the drivers and the PR people and the teams and all the rest of it, because otherwise you're going to get, Kevin Rodney Knuckledragger sitting there going, yeah, this is Jamie Whincup, mate. Yeah, so...
Give him a bit more credit than Woman's Day.
So I think that that's good. I mean, anything they can do to sort of publicise. But this is the problem. I mean, when we were trying to put this together, as Stuart joins us, fashionably late once again, or unfashionably late once again.
I was enjoying the search for pants. I thought it might be important.
Right.
Oh, let's hope that's on the internet, not in your cupboard. Good evening, Stuart, or whatever time of day it is for you.
Yeah, well, it's evening.
No one on this show needs pants.
Well,
I didn't say yes. I found them.
You don't need to do a Graham Kennedy on us.
Well, being 25 minutes late for the start of this, I imagine it took a long time, that you probably were unsuccessful.
Yeah. Shanks Motorsport bummed that Nyora was cancelled the other week. Yeah, so were we. We were really annoyed and upset about that because we were really looking forward to the live stream. Now the good news is that at this stage they have rescheduled it for the end of the month. At this stage, everybody's available. Stuart's available. The people who were going out there, Doc and Shane, and all of the people who were heading out there to live stream it. I said, can we still make it? Everyone's put their hand up again. So as far as I'm concerned, I haven't spoken to Nyora about this, but as far as we're concerned, it's still on for a live stream. We're certainly intending to be out there to film them. Yeah, Darling X, that's talking about Echo. Yes, I haven't put in. I must admit, I was very rushed, and I haven't put in my headphones, and I don't think some of us have. Yeah, March 27th is Nyora. We'll be there. We will be there come hell or high water, and we will certainly be. The plan continues to be that we will live stream that on that particular night. So it's it's a double header. No, Shane, we certainly won't be doing. It's costing us enough. Trust me, it's costing us enough to do Saturday night. Apart from going out there,
I don't know what's on Sunday
as well.
What are they doing Sunday?
I think there's standard saloons and a few some sedans and a few other things. I mean, I suppose the cameras are in there. The problem is, I mean, it's in Nyora, and we can't afford to stay. And it's going to be the same problem we've got for Phillip Island. I mean, for the historics. I mean, really was hoping to go down there and spend a couple of days down there. And unfortunately, we don't have the sponsorship from the Ramada anymore. Those days. How we miss those days. So we just can't afford to be going down there and staying there. And it's a long day. Yes, it's a long day or a long weekend.
The only people who would have a longer day are those that camp down there for the entire race meet.
Yeah, and I don't think there won't be any camping. Now, on just quickly on the historics, while I think about it before we move on, today it was announced, only this afternoon it was announced that they are now going to be letting 1,000 spectators in per day. There was originally going to be no spectators. They've now been allowed to get in. I don't know why it's only 1,000. I have no idea why it's only 1,000.
I have a little bit of an inkling. So there was a lot of debate over the last week of it, and a lot of feedback, good and bad. They did get a lot of support for still holding the event, and there was a lot of conjecture on the point of, yes, everyone gets to race there and everyone contributes. That's all their free spare money or whatever they inherited over the years and get to do this. However, people said, yeah, but you guys go out there and race cars, but without spectators and the contribution monetary-wise over the years, the sport still couldn't exist anyway. And you wouldn't have anywhere to race to a certain extent, and you wouldn't be able to do it. So everyone needs each other. So there was a lot of conjecture. How come Avalon has spectators? How come someone brought up obviously the Australian Open had spectators? There was a whole lot of other events, etc., that came up, and what it came down to, even Sandown, as mentioned, if people have somewhere to sit, as it becomes a spot where they actually can sit there and they can have a seating capacity, which Phillip Island doesn't have around the track whatsoever, unless it's been put up in scaffolding by Boral in the past for the events, which they're contracted to do for occasions, then they can have spectators again. So that's what the
Hang on. Let's just double check that. They can only have spectators if they've got somewhere to sit. Somewhere the size of Phillip Island, which is bigger than a football ground,
I agree with all
not
this.
allowed to have.
I agree with all
What
this.
What the hell, man?
That's what I mean. That's what it's all been going over. So the VHRR are all up in arms saying, look, we have not specifically got a seating capacity. And that's where it came back down to government rules under the COVID regulations. And like, there was people uproar like you saying this is ridiculous. And look, I can see the 100% point as well too. So what the VHRR have had to do is classify Phillip Island down there for these 1,000 spectators as a seating capacity now, and it had to go meet a whole lot of new COVID regulations and forms and red tape and all the stuff that obviously everyone has to go through at the moment to do it. So that's why it's now been incorporated with spectators. Before, they were just having as an event with no seating capacity. Now they are. That's why it comes now under that banner. I know. I agree. I'm just telling you what's happened. I've seen it over the last week.
A lot of it, I don't know whether how much of it is also sort of it's hard to say an overreaction. The problem is, it's like somebody said to me just the other day. Somebody from overseas said, like in response to like what happened at the tennis when with all the spectators booing they booed the vaccine, like. But they was saying you people don't understand, like we in Australia, and they were saying you don't understand just how well you've done and how much better off you are than pretty much everywhere else in the world. And all we're hearing from you is whinge, and yet you're so far ahead of everybody else. You and New Zealand are just so far ahead of everybody else. So I can understand why they're pulling the thing that they're doing. But as you say, when you look at it logically, it's like, and as we said, like I jokingly said last week, there is no way that, like if I've got COVID-19 and I cough, the guy sitting next to me at Phillip Island is not going to get those germs. Probably somebody in Dandenong is going to get the germs once the wind gets hold of it. But it's blowing. It'll be blowing a gale there. It always is. We're out in the open. Nobody's cheek to jowl like a football match or anything. We're all, we just naturally spread out. You want to, get as much room as you can, and it's disappointing. But at least the race meeting is going ahead.
It is what it is.
So we just got to put up with it. I just hope that it would be nice to think. I'm told that there will be, it might even be tomorrow, that there'll be more announcements in terms of further lifting of restrictions.
Yeah, exactly. Just a quick
we'll see how it goes.
So Duncan Cameron, getting slightly off topic, but it is still relevant at the moment because they're obviously going through a pre-season setup and testing. Duncan, thank you for the question. We are going to miss Scotty. I think they'll miss an identity, but once you get into the first 5 minutes of the weekend and the hype and the little bit of glamour and the fun, and and if there's a bit of controversy, even better. What makes a great talking point if you're interested and you're watching, you nailed to that TV on the weekend. There's plenty of young guns that are kind of come through and hopefully throw the cat amongst the pigeons, so to speak. Quickly on Scotty as well, though, I did take note of how he was doing over the last few days, and he was 7th overall in testing. So he's still finding his feet, but going comparatively well for the rest of the drivers over there. So thanks for the question.
IndyCar is looking very similar. We've got Romain Grosjean, of course, is involved in it now as well. The IndyCar is looking good. IMSA is looking good. American motorsport, I mean, despite the lockdown, American motorsport is looking really healthy at the moment. It's like
just on Grosjean too, Brett. He is just about to sign a contract to do Merc testing for Mercedes for Formula One as well. Still.
Yeah, they did say to him, like after the crash, they said he would get an opportunity to drive the car. So, and he would be a really good driver, like for that, because he's got plenty of recent experience. He's coming out there, and to have somebody with that recent experience and to be a sort of a backup there because I think they don't want to sort of drag George Russell again out of Williams probably for just one race to get there. I think they've now had a look at George and probably made their mind up that when Lewis does go, or when we decide to say goodbye to Valtieri, probably George he's passed the audition. He did a good job.
He's a shoo-in.
He's definitely going to do it. Something like as Russell's saying here that Simpson Speedway and Avalon both speedways very close. They don't have seating, but they're allowed 3,000 spectators.
So that was obviously brought into the argument before, and what it was is people had to bring a seat in with them, and that's why they were creating a seat capacity. So,
but why one? Yeah, but they bring a seat and there's 3,000 seats. Do the same at Phillip Island. People.
Well, that's what they've done. They've had to file for a different COVID regulations. I had to follow, obviously, for a different structure, etc., like that. Because when the VHRH first registered for the event, because under the COVID regulations, it was too hard basket to have things, because you've got to have extra volunteers, you've got to follow these regulations, you've got to have sanitary places, you've got to have all this different stuff set up under the government regulations. So, as I said, whether I'm not an advocate for it, I'm not dismissing it either. That's what it was. They did not apply to the government for a certain pass. So they
either way, I just know that in terms of when I went out to Sandown late last year for the AASA meeting that they had out there, the Australian Motor Racing Championship round that they had at Sandown with the AASA, and then compare that with Isle of Magic, which was happening on the same weekend. The two meetings in terms of the protocols and the bureaucracy and all the rest of it were chalk and cheese. I mean, it was just. They were taking all the precautions over at Sandown and all the rest of it, but they weren't going to ridiculous lengths, which I think that they really were at. And I mean, if there's any opportunity at all for certain people within the artists formerly known as CAMs to sort of throw a bit of extra bureaucocy into the mix, they're going to do it. So let's just hope that everything comes off comes off smoothly, and we have a really good meeting. Because even though there's no internationals there'll be a lot of the interstate drivers aren't coming. From what I've seen so far from the entry list already, especially in things like Group R and Group, for some of the more modern open wheelers and Formula Atlantic Pacific cars, Formula 2, Formula 5000, those sorts of cars, and the touring cars. A lot of those categories already have really good fields, even though they don't have the internationals that we normally see at Phillip Island.
If you have to bring your own seat to venues, I could make a killing. I've got a spare wheelchair and shit.
Yeah, you can go anywhere. You can be rent a crowd. Pete can be rent a crowd. It's like put something on eBay or something. You can bid for my service. Not only can and I've got a few friends. We can all sort of turn up. This could be a sort of a good fundraiser.
Catches on Bunnings will be charging $20 for their plastic chairs, not 10.
Well, I must admit I've done that. When I go up to Bathurst, that's what I do. When I go up there, on the way through, I call into Bunnings just outside of Bathurst, pick up one of their $20 plastic chairs and take it up there and sit on that, because it's much more comfortable than those bloody folding things with my back. It's much more comfortable to get up there. And then I just sort of take it down into the pits, or take it down, tie it to a fence somewhere and say, here, have this. So that's the thing. As Mark's pointing out, I mean, as he said last time, he was at the island. You watch from your car. I mean, you can watch from right around the track. That's why I like Phillip Island. I mean, for us, it's fantastic in terms of being able to film there. We don't actually need any special access to film at Phillip Island, because you can get so close to the action from the spectator areas that the difference between us being this side of the spectator fence and that side of the spectator fence is marginal. So it's like, they were
doing it from Red Hill last weekend at Sandown as well too.
Yeah, they had people there for the state round. I don't know how many people turned. I had a quick look over the weekend, but there seemed to be like a reasonable amount of people there. But yeah, I mean, you can see the problem that they were having with their live stream in terms of filming at Sandown. They had to bring in scaffolding, which of course adds to the cost considerably. So I think every camera point was coming off a scaffold, because it's the only way you can see big slabs of the track now. There's nowhere you can film there. It's really love Sandown. A great place to watch racing, but obviously just around the corner. Look forward to getting back there and at some stage, but and hopefully being able to film somewhere there again. But I certainly didn't miss the fact that of having the battle of being stuck inside at turn 4 for 6 or 7 hours, and getting one angle of the.
Before we get on to some better news, I just want to mention the saddest of news that could be spoken. Fausto Grassini passed away 2 days earlier this week. I think it was on Monday, unfortunately. And anyone that knows their bikes, Fausto has been around for decades. He was a racer back in his day, only in the 125s, and did win a championship with that. But he grew out of the bike, even though he was a little fella, and started getting into administration and running teams. Eventually created his own team. He unfortunately fell to COVID-19 complications, because he's had it since the start of December last year. He went into they put him into a induced coma originally, came out of it, was on a respirator, was lucid, fine, talking to family, doing Zoom meetings, etc. like that. But unfortunately, it got onto respiratory-wise, it got hold of his lungs and the rest of him. So he passed away early this week and leaves a big legacy and obviously a heavy heart in the Moto GP and the bike industry and paddock over there in Europe especially. He was a lovely man, and always gave his time and was generous with his love of the sport and to everyone. And especially being a satellite team for most of his years, he was never part of a factory team, but always was getting handouts from the big guns, and was able to put a few people on the podium on the #1 spot many a time. And unfortunately, lost a couple of riders. Cato and Simoncelli are the two notable ones that died in accidents over the years. So a big heartfelt sorry, all the best and condolences from the people at Impit family, and I suppose everyone around bikes around the whole world. It's extremely sad news about Fausto, and we've lost a great man. I'm sure hopefully his life will be celebrated in the way a wonderful tribute at the start of the Moto GP calendar. Which, on some slightly better news, Marc Marquez is not going to be testing Qatar in the Moto GP. They're going to be there for it in March, and he is aiming for the first race, even though he's not going to test. So that shoulder's still not good enough. He said he's not going to be making any more decisions on whether he races or not because he obviously fell over in a heap in 24 hours when he tried to do it last year. He's going to wait for the doctors to tell him that he is okay.
Well, there's a revolutionary idea, isn't it? Like let's wait for the doctors instead of being, throwing your Spanish machismo out there and saying, like he's like the Black Knight in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. It's like it is but a flesh wound. It is a flesh wound, monsieur. I don't know why he suddenly smart. He actually speaks fluent French as well. They do in Spain.
Look, I think he just must
He comes
have.
from the north of Spain, all right.
He had his adrenaline just didn't wear off after it took a couple of weeks for his adrenaline to wear off. But yeah, he's going to wait. And yeah, it looks rosy for the Moto GP season to have a normal year, which is good news. And just quickly, we don't usually cover much of rally, but I think Brett and I usually try and get at least a little tidbit in about it. But I did see Ford M Sport are aiming high over the next 2-3 years, and they want the crown in the World Rally Championship by 2023, and they're going hard at it.
Well, they're going to have to because with what Ford have said, after 2025, they're not going to have any cars suitable to run in the world apart from into the in the electric class or in the extreme or whatever, the rally extreme or whatever they're calling it. Because Ford are saying that they're basically going to stop producing internal combustion engine cars in Europe sooner rather than later. So I imagine they really want to sort of get stuck in. The other thing in terms of the good news in terms of what's happening with manufacturers and motorsport, of course, and we knew that it was coming in a way, or we thought it was coming, but it wasn't confirmed until yesterday, and that is the brilliant news that Ferrari are making a comeback at Le Mans and will be racing a hypercar up against. So as I think I said last week, we can now add Ferrari to that list that includes Toyota, Peugeot, probably Alpine. They haven't 100% confirmed, but they're a bit like Ferrari. We think they'll be there. Audi, Porsche. And, of course, if Ferrari's going to be there, the 100th anniversary of Le Mans, and Ford, looking to...
I think I've got a little bit of dribble in the corner of my mouth now. I'm waiting already years ahead. Oh, come on, let's go.
No,
General Motors are reassessing their program in IMSA racing with the end of GT Le Mans over there as to whether they run a GT3 version of the Corvette, which we discussed last week, or whether they might pick up and do a revamp version of the Cadillac, or run it under the Chev banner, one or the other. So you could have, just imagine that: Ford versus Chev versus Toyota versus Acura versus. I
have a question for everyone
magic.
Then. How good are the psycho wars going to be against each other for the next couple of years? What a bonfire it's going to be, and just wait for the bragging rights. I tell you.
Just wait for the arguments over balance of performance. That's going to be the one when people turn up, and that's going to be the real fun one, especially when especially at Le Mans, if Peugeot and Alpine do turn up and run there, because I imagine
in the world.
For the 100th anniversary of Le Mans, what would be better for the 100th anniversary than the 100th anniversary of Le Mans being won by a French manufacturer? I imagine
Alpine
the ACO
would be nice,
will be...
but on behalf of all the Ford fans, I'd just like to ask this one question. When was the last time Ferrari won at Le Mans?
1967. Who
won the year after? And the year after? And the year after?
1972 was the last year Ferrari competed at Le Mans, and 1967 was the last year that they won. So there you go. There's your answer. I just happened that off the top of my head. So that's it. I'm done for the night. My brain's gone. Anyway, but there's your answer.
I'm just thinking, like, as I said, in terms of, like, going over there. I sort of said that I didn't know whether I'd ever want to go back to Le Mans again after Melissa, passing and all the rest of it. It'll be a lot of sort of very sad memories, but at the same time, I imagine that if I can imagine if she was here right now, she would be saying, "I don't care what we have to do, we are going to Le Mans." Because that's how we ended up we did the 75th anniversary there, and that was part of the deal. It was like, I can't afford it. And she said, "You're never going to be able to afford it. Go anyway." And I think 2023 is starting to look a bit like that as well. If all that happens, wow! I mean, and the other interesting thing is that for 2023. And I heard this on Radio Le Mans on Midweek Motorsport and Radio Show Limited last week. Because of what's happened with COVID, the Le Mans Classic, they've changed the dates. So because it was cancelled last year, they're going to run this year. They're not going to sort of get back into the even year thing. They're going to run it now every second year. So it was supposed to be the next race was supposed to be in 2022. It's now going to be 2023 as well, which is the same thing. So if you could go over there, do the 100th anniversary of Le Mans for the race, the 24-hour race, if you could just manage to stay around another 3 or 4 weeks, you could also do the Le Mans Classic. And I haven't done. And when you talk to anybody at Le Mans, especially the people who work there in the media centre, all the officials, everybody we spoke to over the years we went there, everyone said, "You must come for the Classic."
I absolutely wholeheartedly back you up there, Brett. Look, I mean, as a teaspoon taste, we discussed it last week, I think, as well too, Brett, that the Bend will probably get an Asia Le Mans style race over here at some stage in the next year or two. There's an opportunity for the in-pit lane fans and viewers out there to get along. I went to, obviously, the Bend back at the start of 2020 last year and got to see when they brought the Asia Le Mans round to Australia, and I got to see the LMP2, LMP3, and the GT3 cars. Had seen the GT3 cars, but had not seen the LMP cars. And to any fan out there whatsoever, if you follow any form of motorsport here in Australia, I don't care what it be your demolition derby mudding or on a 2 wheels or 4 wheels, get along to try and get to the Bend there in the next year or two. You'll have a taste. You'll have a teaspoon of it. You'll just want then a whole bowl of it after that to get across to France. So that's just a recommendation, endorsing what you just said before, Brett, in a step-by-step way of getting over there to make it a goal in life.
Well, that's how obviously, like, Le Mans is on everybody's bucket list. It was certainly on mine, but the real sort of motivator, the thing that got us over there, was the Adelaide race when they had the American Le Mans series come out here, for the race of 1,000 years. When they brought that out as well, because we went over there, Melissa and I were both over there. It was sort of the first time we went over, we travelled anywhere together, and at the end of it all, we just sort of looked and said, "My God, how good! If this is, we know how good this has been. Can you imagine how good the actual Le Mans 24-hour itself must be?" And let me tell you, for all of your expectations, you won't be disappointed. It is everything you thought it would be, and then some. It is the most amazing experience, and just everything about it is unbelievable. So if you get any opportunity to go any time at all, take it. It's just the most amazing race.
Bit of Formula One news. You got any on your dinner plate there, Peter?
No, it's been pretty quiet.
You haven't seen that Raikkonen still looks as young as what he used to be. He's still got the same amount of energy that he did 20 years ago.
Yeah, which is none.
Well, hey, he still weighs the same. I saw two comparative pics of him during the week. He still looks like he's still got carrying the same amount of lead around him.
Well, it's all that time he spends in the saunas. I mean, that's what the Finnish people do. They all sit in the saunas all the time.
Perez is pretty confident with the RB. Well, up to 13 or something like that. The Red Bull car.
Yeah, I got them. So I haven't had a look at it yet. I'm sort of saving it up for the first episode of the show, but we've got some footage of the. I mean, this is the thing at Formula One, because they're in this sort of sort of mid year sort of or mid season. They're not making any major changes until next year, until sort of the 2022 car. It's a bit sort of very minor changes. It's like you see on some of the stuff on the YouTube channels, the race and all the rest of it. There's they're coming up and saying, now look, there's a very small bump there. It's about half a centimetre tall. That's very significant, and here's why. And it's like, yeah, and what's the chance? How long do you think it's going to last? In that position or that size or whatever, we won't know what these cars are actually going to look like until the very first race. Yeah, and then the race afterwards, they're going to be different yet again, and every race after
it evolves every time. I think the expectations are a bit high this year because they're still using last year's car. There's obviously been budget cuts across Formula One because of what's going on in the world, and that's what the regulations are, that they've got to use last year's car. So they're not going to be... They can only develop with all the slight changes in specifications that they can play with. So everyone's saying, oh, who's going to challenge Merc? Is anyone going to be up there? But so it's not going to be surprising if Mercedes is still out in front 1-2 for the first couple of races. So it all depends on budgets. Just wondering if Daniel left a nice fragrance tree in his Renault for Fernando Alonso, who's going to be jumping in his seat this year.
Fernando, of course, is recovering from that
fractured jaw.
What was that, Pete?
From a fractured jaw, he's recovering from it. Yeah.
Yeah, he had the accident, and as someone pointed out, I think Nick Damon pointed out on Midweek Motorsport, why on earth do racing drivers and motorcycle racers insist on riding bicycles? Because there have been so many. Mark Webber had a big crash. We lost Nicky. There was Nicky Hayden. There was a whole. So many people have been seriously injured or even killed while riding push bikes around. They get off these this dangerous sport of motor racing, and they hop on the little pedally and go down the shops, and some idiot cleans them up
because they're human. That's why. Because you can jump on an exercise bike and you can sit there with a LED screen on you, and you can watch absolute rubbish. But it's better motivation. It's natural human intuition and exploration. You want to jump on a bike, and you're going to get more benefits and experience from actually going for a ride yourself in the countryside. That's just the choice they make. I think it's just a plain humanity thing. They can't just sit on a simulator or sit on a bike or stand on a treadmill. I don't blame them.
Yeah, well, it's hopefully, thankfully, Fernando's not too badly injured, and he'll hopefully be back up and running once they get to the test. That everything should be okay. Okay, there. I think the car that has changed the most, and I think that will be the most interesting, is obviously the McLaren that Daniel's going to be driving, because they've now got the Mercedes power plant, and it'll be interesting to see just how much that's going to improve things, assuming it does improve things for McLaren, because they weren't that far off of they were in that second group, and they were dicing with people like Renault and all the rest of it. You would have to think they will take that next step and at least be challenging Red Bull for the best of the rest. And who knows? I mean, it would be sort of embarrassing for them, but it's quite feasible that if they get it right, that they could actually be quite competitive up against Mercedes. So let's keep our fingers crossed that that's the case, because to have McLaren versus Mercedes, Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris versus Lewis and Valtteri Bottas, that would be fantastic. And that obviously Red Bull aren't going to be that far behind, because they're going to be having their own fights now, because there's actually two drivers who are very much capable of winning now.
One for the room. Where's Ferrari going to finish up then in the Constructors' Championship?
Well, that's the great unknown, isn't it? In terms of they've already pretty much said that. Look, there's not going to be any radical changes for this year. So you would imagine they were sort of out of the loop for most of last year. They're probably going to be out of the loop again this year.
4th, 5th, 3rd. No.
Yeah, what do you think, Pete?
Probably 5th.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Are you? So you're putting Merck, Renault, Alpine, Merck, Alpine, McLaren, even Red Bull, Williams.
Williams, I'm expecting to be improved because they've increased their technical alliance with Mercedes. So I'm expecting them to be kind of the new midfield.
Anyone who's with Mercedes improvements this year is going to finish up better.
Well, the problem that Williams had is that they were rather stubborn in terms of not wanting. They took the engine, but they didn't take the gearbox. They wanted to do. Frank obviously wanted to do things, his own way, and he had his own ideas, and the team had their own ideas. Now with the new ownership, they've sort of said, look, Mercedes sort of know what they're doing, and so we'll just take that whole package. So basically, from a bit like, even though it's the same, they're running the same engine. They're the other team where the car is probably, at least from the back half, substantially different to the car we saw running around last year. So yeah, Williams will be there. I'm not sure that it'd be interesting to see how Renault go. I mean, with Alonso and with the because the way they were going, they were there or thereabouts, but they weren't really up the front there. I think once again you'd be looking at Mercedes, Red Bull. You would hope McLaren would be there as well. And then of the rest, we don't know, like Aston Martin, what the team formerly known as Force India, formerly known as Racing Point. You would imagine that they would be up there as well.
Russell.
So so there's a few. There's a few up there in the second, but I would imagine that Mercedes are probably going to win again.
Yeah, not with the limited development of the car and no obviously change of platform. They're still going to do it, and I'll let that one slide. Then you got a Frank Sinatra one in there just quickly. Frank and I did it my way, so he didn't sing it when you said it.
But anyway, hey, listen, I think we'll call it quits there because big weekend of motorsport. If you've got Foxtel or KO, it is on free to air television. It is on Channel 7 over the weekend. I'm not sure about tomorrow, but I haven't looked.
Good luck to Dale Wood too, who's
sorry, Pete.
It's not on free to air tomorrow, but Saturday and Sunday.
So yeah, just Saturday and Sunday. So okay, yeah. So free to air on Channel 7 on Saturday and Sunday from Mount Panorama. Now I don't know. I'm not really sure this. If you're watching from overseas, I think you're going to have the opportunity of watching these things free because they have
these.
Yes,
you can. Not New Zealand, Australia and New Zealand are both geo blocked. The rest of so if you've got Stuart could probably tell us how to do that. He wouldn't do it himself, of course, but I'm sure he could tell us how to set it up ourselves if you've got IPN somewhere else in the world. Thanks for the sign language. I didn't know you were
three little letters. The first one starts with V.
Anyway, you can geo blocked only here, but quickly shout out
if you want to do it easy, the three little letters and the first one starts with T and the last one starts with R.
To Dale, a good shout to Dale Wood, who's racing for Ashley Stewart Motorsport in his Carrera Cup, his Porsche this weekend. So, good luck to him in his new category.
Yeah, and good luck to our mate John Bow as well. Bowie, we're thinking of you. I know that he's the treatment that he's on for the prostate cancer sort of knocks you around a bit, and he's not feeling 100%. But as he said, he wasn't going to miss Bathurst for any reason at all. So I'm sure he'll be once he gets behind the wheel of a car, it'll be and puts that visor down. It'll be the same old John Bow that we know and love, and he'll be up the front of the field as well. He has said that if I don't know what he's got planned. He has said that if he, for some reason, he can't make. Oh, bless you, Doc. He has said if he can't get into the car, if he's not feeling well enough, and that he does have he does have a plan B, but he hasn't said what that is. So that'll be interesting to find out, perhaps from him at some stage, what is plan B. He is also, interestingly enough, entered for, I believe, for Phillip Island Historics as well in Joe College's in the Allard, the ex Carroll Shelby car that John's driven a few times down there, and has just had a major engine rebuild, and from Synergy Race Engines, I think. So it'll be putting out plenty of power, and will be sounding absolutely mint. So we'll certainly have a look at that car when we get down to Phillip.
Hopefully they give it a shakedown before they run around the track. That way it gets a few laps under its belt.
It'll be. I'm sure
That
it'll
wasn't
be.
the Shelby car that we saw at the Historics a few years ago.
Yeah, that's
The yellow one. Really?
No, that was old Yeller. Yeah. So but yeah, so that won't be there. So Ernie won't be back from America, of course. But anyway, we really do have to go. I will see you. As I said, keep. Unfortunately, our Facebook page is still down. So that's unfortunate. But keep an eye out for the Facebook page coming up. Keep an eye out on the In Pit Lane website and also on the YouTube channel, and we will give you all the details of In Pit Lane's return, whether it's next week or the week after. It'll be either of them on Channel 31, and obviously streamed live on YouTube as well. Yes. Thank you, Stuart. I was trying to be.
Thank you for that graphic, Stuart. That was really appreciative.
Yeah.
That's a
okay. And on that highly illegal note, we will say
boom boom.
It's very handy.
Illegal if you get caught.
Very very handy if you're a cricket fan as well. I can tell you. The Test match, lying in bed at night listening to Test match special England versus Pakistan was very lovely.
Yeah, they do international radio all the time. You can hear it that way as well.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see you. Very very soon. Whether it's next week, keep tuned. We'll see you. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks, Russell, Mark, John, everybody else. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you next week. Until then, from all of us, bye bye.